Good morning, everybody. We've managed to make it through another IGS workshop. This is the wrap-up session. This session is primarily designed for those of you who went sightseeing all week and missed out on the actual sessions and the splinter meetings, where we go through all of the recommendations. Of course, these recommendations in many ways form the core of the work program for the next period of time through to the next workshop. And you've seen this week many of the working group chairs reporting against the recommendations from the Sydney workshop, so that they're actually very important for us. We have two other things to do in this session this morning, so we're going to need to keep it moving. After we finish going through the recommendations, we'll have a short presentation from Shili Zhao from Wuhan on the next workshop, and enticing you to visit Wuhan. And after that, then I'll hand over to Professor Altamimi to close the workshop and this session, of course. For those of you who are in the governing board, you don't get off that easily. We have a meeting after lunch, but we'll try and keep that fairly short as well, so you can get back to your sightseeing. Okay, let's get started.
So these are the three recommendations we approved within the working group. So the first one is we had a tentative approval of the format, and the next step is now to have this new format version 1.00 to consider this for final approval by the IGS. The second is that the IGS analysis and the user community are encouraged in making use of this new bias format as a next step, and to be well prepared. So this is more or less more towards the future. The next is a potential redefinition of the clock bias convention, in particular from the rigid GPS C1W, C2W to flexible GNSS clock bias convention has to be addressed by the IGS community. So at code, for example, we're well prepared. We already did tests. We could change the convention already tomorrow.
Okay, any questions?
We can move to recommendation. After the workshop, we would like to start to prepare combined product, including O7 Associate Analysis Center. Also, due to an increasing number of IGS ionospheric processing center, we would like also to recompute all our Yonex maps since 1998 until now. Also, we would like, together with bias and calibration working group, update our Yonex format to version 1.1, and also would like very close cooperate with International LOFAR telescope, huge infrastructure in radioastronomical infrastructure in Europe, and also international reference ionosphere COSPAR group. Thanks a lot. Yes.
In your reprocessing, is it possible to go back to 1996, because that's when we've typically started?
Yes, we'll be currently in the Chinese Academy of Science using my servers, uploaded all Yonex maps since 1998. Also, Wuhan University after this workshop also will upload. Currently also Stefan and Code Analysis Center also recompute maps, because Stefan informed me that would like to include GLONASS measurements to his maps. And Dr. Riza from NRCan uploaded maps since 2014. And I think it will be possible, and all my members agree to do.
Recommendation 1 is the IGS continue to maintain an openness to scientific users by organising participation at future workshops. I think we all would agree to that. Recommendation 2 that IGS exploit showcase examples of scientific users by demonstrating the value of IGS to science as a means for improving relationships with users. Agree completely, and we'll hear later in the recommendations from the communications focus group that has much of the same content. And recommendation 3 that the IGS begin to document which scientific disciplines are using IGS products and which products with explanations as necessary. And step 2 that the IGS work with scientists in the above documented list to develop a table that links each scientific discipline investigation with IGS product specification standards, accounting for both current requirements and desired future requirements. Sounds like a good thing to do. We'll need to talk about that one at the governing board because it also sounds like a reasonably large body of work.
Okay, thank you. So in our working group meeting, there were sort of 3 major issues that came up, main one being Repro 2 processing. If you guys have seen Jake's AGU poster, you realize that there's a problem with the Repro 2 clocks. And so most of it was just brainstorming different methods to deal with that. And so our recommendation for now is to come up with some test cases using a few of the different methods, circulate them around the working group, and try to use stations that line up with the EPN reprocessed estimates that Rosa presented, just so we have an outside comparison before we move forward with the reprocessing. So should be more. And the 2 other ones were Yandusa's putting together a troposphere comparison website, and just finish that because the community seems eager to test it out. And finally, the Tropo Synex version 2 is near completion, so recommendation would be it's finalized to adopt it at the IGS.
First recommendation was about the Synex metadata satellite format. We had worked out a proposal to incorporate satellite information into new blocks of Synex that would be GPS technique specific, but we still want to get approval by the other techniques next week to phase that in. And that would allow, for example, to give the full information on center of mass information, on antenna offsets, and etc. Then there was a proposal to exchange attitude data. That is not really something that is multi-GNSS specific, but it is also affecting, or mostly affecting currently GPS. And a couple of people inside the working group volunteered to make a kind of trial to promote that. Then the clear recommendation was to incorporate the Antex model provided by ESA and or EU for the Galileo IOV satellites, and hopefully soon for FOC, directly into the operational Antex file. It has been tested that this does not cause harm, but it has the big expectation to improve and consolidate things. Then we encourage work on a quality-controlled broadcast ephemeris product, not so much for MJEX needs in itself, but for all those users that want to do multi-GNSS constellation monitoring that does not work without a quality-controlled broadcast product. Finally, robot calibrations, the never-ending story. We do need robot calibrations for new signals and new constellations. Without those, all the products are somehow affected by uncertainties. And in the long run, we would like to promote a revision of the Antex format for an improved transmit antenna handling and support of group delays. I think the support of group delays is on the way already. The other part will follow hopefully soon. And yes, then we had a special request, never ever do free beer while we have our meeting again.
So the first one is basically to make sure that we have feedback for the stations to implement some automated process to where we're checking all the products and reflecting it back to the stations page so that they know what participation there has been from that station. We used to have that, we lost it, we'll recreate it. we also want to help and assist reference frame working group with this position estimation at the same level, if possible, of all the other IGS network stations. So far, only stations that are used by final ACs get included into the combination SINEX, the cumulative one. I've just received excellent word that this will happen, so this may be one of the fastest recommendations to have ever been implemented, which is great, and thanks for the Tiger group that offered to do it. We want to develop, there's already a site guideline recommendation to do parallel installation when you're upgrading an antenna, in particular, that you leave it running for a little while, and then we need to develop on the IGS side what that data could be used for, whether we develop any kind of antenna change offset or not, and where it should be stored, etc., and who should process it. We want to support the antenna working group to get as many individual calibrations as we can find, and to develop a parallel activity with the ACs to see what the impact of this is. There's already a significant number of individual calibrations in the EPN, in the UREF network, and so I think we can try to reach agreement through local, regional, and global analysis to see what impact this really has on. I've been requested in lieu of the previous one that north, south, west, and east pictures should be again requested, and made a point of that. This is an ongoing thing, but we'll take it up again and make another effort, David, Margaret, and myself. And the last request came also from one of the presentations we saw yesterday, and some of the people working on soil moisture recovery and snow depth, and that is to store somehow in the site log the antenna ground plane distance to the actual ground, so the local height, because that's something we're not storing right now. So it is, unless you see a picture, it's a little bit difficult to know how high some of those monuments are. So we want to make sure that that information is as close as possible to our antenna description. I also have, from the RINEX working group, I've been tasked with giving you their recommendations, which is basically to be really nice and support everyone. So Ken has sent me the RINEX working group will continue to support, of course, the IGS in the RTCM subcommission 104. They will update the RINEX 303 to support Beidou when the ICD is actually released, and they will support the IGMA activity in case they need extension, and for sure to clarify the navigation message. So they'll do that together to make sure that we capture what we need. In terms of the hexadecimal or binary storage of the navigation message, there is already a format from RTCM to do that, and they'll have to discuss how to go about it.
Okay, so we have just a few recommendations here. Some have actually been touched on before. The first of those is the Wuhan. Did I just move that? Back, sorry. Yeah. The Wuhan group has been submitting rapid solutions now for the last year. That's the common overlap period that we've used. Their solutions have improved in accuracy, so the recommendation is they be brought into the rapid product line. That gives us one more analysis center, and it's also a multi-GNSS analysis center as well. GFZ has, their Tiger group has very graciously volunteered their Tiger solution, which contains all of the IGS stations. That will be merged into the combination software, and Paul has agreed to do that as well. We're going to propose that SINEX move to 9-character site names instead of 4-character site names. That is something we cannot do, and we will suggest it next week at the Unified Analysis Workshop, and we'll see how well that flies. You can take bets if you like at this point. We want to start looking a little bit more at some statistical analysis of the long arc statistics on that, and we had a fairly vigorous discussion on the best way to do this. So we're going to explore various ways to do that. We want to put in a new SINEX block that has antenna transmit power, and again, given the way SINEX is blocked, that should not be a problem for other groups in there. And Oh, yeah, and we also want to set up a location as models are developed, particularly as we start thinking about Repro 3, which is already on our horizon. As groups implement new models, we're going to encourage groups to make software available that implements that model and make results available in forms that allow other groups to easily compare their results away, just because some of these models now are getting quite subtle in terms of their impact, and understanding whether you've got the correct code in is a very time-consuming task, and trying to make that easier for the ACs is the plan.
So we just go quickly to the recommendations from the antenna working group. We have first set of recommendations, which is basically regarding the stations. It's to promote to study the impact of individual calibrated antenna on IGS analysis products. Station managers as well as ACs are encouraged to participate by either contributing individual calibrated receiver patterns or by analyzing the data made available. The ACs should coordinate their efforts and define the methodology for the analysis. The second part is also regarding this, is to consider in situ calibrations techniques. So how can we address the near field? The next one is to recommend the comparison of the antenna calibrations between the calibration centers. Then we would like to propose, the proposal was there for an experimental Antex file, which will containing non-standard IGS pattern. Then the next is to include the disclosed PCO and PCV patterns of the IOV satellites into the IGS Antex file. And the same will be done for the FOC satellites as soon as they are available and tested. Then regarding the Antex format, it's considering the information on group phase variations for an intermediate update of the current Antex. So basically we want to go from Antex 1.4, do a slight change by adding the G group phase variations, and go for Antex versions 1.5. This had to be quite quickly. The date is not part of the recommendation, this is kind of the timeline, so this we really like to push. And then go for the next step to considering a major update of the antenna Antex format in conjunction with the MGEX satellite metadata development. This will then be a major update and lead to an Antex version 2.0.
Thanks, Gary. We had a very good discussion. I think we covered a lot of topics. We had two main recommendations, and they might seem a bit generic, but the first one is that these draconitic effects are appearing in all the network solutions at a significant level, and it's a problem that needs to be solved. It was also made clear that the draconitic effects appear in all the AC solutions. So it's right across the board. Irrespective of whatever modeling people are doing, there's something that's affecting things. So that's something we need to put thought into as to what the origins of that problem are. Second discussion was around developing strategies for Repro 3 in advance of ITRF 2020. So we just encourage all the ACs to start thinking about what they're going to try and to discuss that internally and then perhaps compare and contrast with each other. That's it.
All right, so we had an inaugural communications interest session with some interesting dialogue. Our recommendations are to work with associate members to develop liaisons to your own organization's communications people, so that, for example, a lot of the presenters were featured in tweets on IGS, Twitter, and Facebook, and other social media channels. And what this does is that makes us known to your media people, so they just don't think, who is this crazy IGS who keeps sending me pictures of Tom Herring and other people. The second one was to develop a resource pool for multiple levels of communication and education materials. We talked about how it's hard to have a complete exhaustive library of communications or education materials, but everybody's got a little something. And so if we find a way to have the IGS become a kind of a central point of contact for this information, that we might be surprised with the volume and quality and just the great things that we all have collectively, but we don't know that we have. Engage university geodesy programs to develop lesson plans that familiarize students with accessing and using IGS data and products. and possibly consider formation of a formal communications and education interest group. And just following up on Nacho's talk about network photos, I don't know if you guys have seen our social media page, but we have been using your network photos. So when you have a new station, it gets announced on the Twitter, Facebook, a number of other channels, and those photos do come in handy. They are very valuable, and I'm very happy to those of you who get a little artistic sometimes. Sometimes there are more than the required photos, and a few of them definitely convey a sense of composition and artistry, so thank you for that. Let's see, and the other thing is just please check us out on our social media channels. You may see some familiar faces from this week, and yeah, that's it.
The data centers met with the infrastructure committee splinter group meeting, and it mainly concentrated on the site XML work, the eGeodesy work, the Geodesy ML work. So the recommendations that we came up with there, for those, and everyone saw Fran's excellent presentation on Geodesy ML. So our recommendations were to provide refinements for to Geodesy ML for site log metadata. So we encourage those groups responsible for maintaining site information, site metadata to get involved in the project and provide any recommendations you may have for additions to Geodesy ML. And then we encourage interested participants to strive for implementation of Geodesy ML in their infrastructure. The IGS site log metadata XML system, for example, by providing increased availability of Geodesy ML formatted site logs, and web services then for pulling the information out and sharing the information among networks and receiver managers. So those were the main focus areas for the data center working group this time.
Good morning, everybody. And firstly, you know that next year workshop will be held in Wuhan. Firstly, here I would like to introduce a short introduction for the Wuhan University. You know that China is in the center of Wuhan is in the center of China, and this is the location of Wuhan University. And next is picture is a campus of Wuhan University in Wuhan City. So nearby the lake and hold one mountain. Yeah, it's like campus. And you know that Wuhan University has a long history, more than 120 years ago. Okay. Yeah, now is Wuhan University. Here, there are 34 schools and 3 independent departments, and maybe top 7 or top 6 in China, and many top areas in the world. And we have many students in this university. For master students, will be 20,000 and 7,000 PhD students here in Wuhan University. And for Jing as a research center of Wuhan University, is our center, yeah. And we are play a major role in hosting workshop. This is there are more than 40 people here, and PhD student is 45 PhD students, and was master student more than 70 students. The research area is about the geodetic reference frame and Jing as process processing, S bars and ground bars for GNSS, and POD for loose and wide field modeling. And other area I think is for area is close with AGS. The second is AGS activities in Wuhan University. Firstly, in 2020, we joined the Alliance Center for the Ultra Rapid Products. And 2013 is Data Center and Alliance Center for Real-Time Products. And for 14, Alliance Center for MJX. And the Data Center in 15. And Aerosphere, Alliance Center 2016. And Rapid Products at AGR will be this year. So next year, we are hosting AGS workshop. It's our player and Waller to do this. So for hosting AGS workshop, and it got to me most important thing now is to fix a date. When? To September, October, December. This is temperature. Can you see that? Is for September the temperature is 16 to 26, maybe with October, and that December I do not prefer that. It's very cold for maybe for you, I think. So how about the date? We can discuss about a date for in Wuhan.
I would state that September is often difficult for US universities because that's the start of our semesters. And so keeping it a little later, October would probably be a bit easier.
Okay. End of October, yeah. By end of October, yeah. Right, yeah. That'll be okay. And time for us is okay, yeah. Always available, yeah. You can choose and discuss, prefer you. Okay. Okay, okay. Okay. And meeting hall, one is a big house for on campus of Ohio University. Can hold 1,000 persons, and also East Lake Convention Center. We can choose later. Yeah, I think for transportation is very convenient. We can take flight. This is the new Terminal 3 for Wuhan Flight Airport. And also you can, if you come from our city in China, it's a high-speed railway. Also can be a challenge. So, and this is a subway from airport directly to Ohio University, and to change. And also, this is the competition. You can choose if a campus nearby, 2 minutes, can do a meeting hall. Yeah, this is very convenient.
Accommodations 2 minutes from the meeting hall.
Yeah, yeah, but 2 minutes. We can use the whole hotel. We book that. Yeah, for its conference. Convenient, and also several meeting room here can do a splitting discussion. Yeah, and for this house, it'll be big. I think 1,000 person here. Yeah, good environment. Here. Okay. Yeah, Wuhan University provide to funding, place, and volunteers. A lot of volunteers in Wuhan University. A lot of master and PhD students can make your traveling was smooth. If you want to help, everybody can arrange your volunteer. Yeah. Okay. That's all. Okay. It's Rohan University. Okay. Thank you.
So everything has an end, and including the workshop. It was a great pleasure for us to host this workshop here, supported by IGN, CNES, and the Campus Spatial of Paris Diderot. On behalf of these three organizations, I want to really thank you for your active participation. I want also to apologize if there were some decisions to be taken. It was necessary. I was direct for some of you. I hope you are not hurted by that. It was really a great pleasure to have you here. I want also to have some comment on terms of participation. We were asked if we can have the list of participants available at the website. We want to do that within 1 week from now. And if you have any objection not to be listed, just send an email to the local organizing committee, and we will remove your name from the list of participants. Okay? Sorry if there is no lunch today, but you have plenty of restaurants around. I want to thank also the Central Bureau for their help and their assistance. That workshop was a pleasure for us, but it was a little bit difficult sometimes, probably not only for us, but maybe for some of you. But that was a great pleasure, and that workshop would not be a success. Well, let me call that a successful workshop without the group around me.